Are you craving a trip on Space Mountain? Well, we've got the next best thing. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePauli, and welcome to the House of Mouse headlines brought to you by laughingplace.com, your up-to-date resource for the latest Disney news every day of the week. This episode is being released on February 24th, 2021, and here's what's been going on in the world of Disney recently. The closure of a Disney-owned animation studio, good news for Disney Cruise Line fans, a first look at another Disney live-action film, and more. It's all coming your way right after this. We all love Disney merch, but if I were to be completely honest, some of my favorite merchandise is made by independent companies who make magically inspired merchandise. One of the best out there truly is Who's Its and What's Its. Who's Its and What's Its has been creating unique apparel for 10 years now. And guess what? If you're a Disney Coast to Coast listener, you can save 15% off your entire order just by using coupon code DCTC when you order at who'sitswhatsits.com. It's that simple. One of the things I love about Who's Its and What's Its is that a lot of their merchandise is very in-the-know type of merch. It's not super obvious or in your face a lot of the times. So, when somebody sees you wearing a piece of merch with a deep dive reference that the majority of folks would miss, you know that person is as awesome as you, and you may just make a new friend out of it. It is truly delightful when you see a stranger's eyes light up just because they get it too. There's so much to explore, so head to who'sitswhatsits.com, spelled like who'sitswhatsits.com, or click on the link in this episode's description. And don't forget to use code DCTC at checkout to save 15% off your entire order.
Hear the latest news from the Walt Disney Company in today's House of Mouse headlines.
First, some sad news this week as Disney legend Charles Boyer has passed away. Boyer was Disneyland's first full-time artist, working for the company for 39 years. In that time, he created illustrations for lithographs, magazine covers, brochures, flyers, and more. In 2005, Boyer was named a Disney legend. Upon retiring in 1999, Boyer was quoted as saying, "I've worked with such great people, my wife used to ask if I was actually getting any work done because I was having so much fun." The Walt Disney Company has announced that it'll be shutting down Blue Sky Studios effective this April. The studio, which produced such hits as the Ice Age series of films, as well as the Peanuts movie, Rio, and others, was acquired by Disney with the purchase of 21st Century Fox assets. As a result of the closure, Blue Sky's in-the-works film Nimona, which had been set for a 2022 debut, will not be released. While this move will impact approximately 450 employees, Disney will reportedly be working with those affected to explore open positions at other internal studios. When Disney's Raya and the Last Dragon arrives in theaters next month, a new short will debut along with it. Us Again, from director Zach Parrish, is described as a vibrant and original short that brings together dance, music, emotional storytelling, and inspired animation. In it, an elderly man and his young-at-heart wife rekindle their youthful passion for life and each other on one magical night. According to Disney, Us Again will only be available in theaters this March, but will eventually come to Disney Plus in June. Speaking of Raya and the Last Dragon, Disney's Animal Kingdom is celebrating the latest Walt Disney animation release with some fun new offerings. As of this week, guests can now learn to draw new characters from Raya and the Last Dragon, including Raya's faithful companion Tuk Tuk at the Animation Experience at Conservation Station. Meanwhile, at Discovery Island Stage, artists have completed a 40-ton sand sculpture featuring Raya, Tuk Tuk, Sisu, and the Ongi. I may have pronounced some of those incorrectly, so forgive me if I did, but these carvings will remain on display at Disney's Animal Kingdom through the end of March. Last year, Epcot's Leave a Legacy monoliths were removed from the entry courtyard as part of the park's transformation. However, the photos that were part of this promotion have now found a new home. As guests approach the park gates, they may notice the colorful displays along the pathways, with each panel hosting hundreds of Leave a Legacy photos. Those looking for a specific photo can also scan a QR code in order to get the coordinates, meaning the panel, row, and column numbers for their image. And yes, in case you were wondering, and most importantly, you can still find the members of boy band extraordinaire NSYNC as part of this new display. Guests can also visit the Epcot Guest Relations team for any assistance. This April, Disney's contemporary resort at Walt Disney World will undergo a refurbishment project that will bring updates to guest rooms. While some main tower rooms will be unavailable during this refurbishment, most resort areas and amenities will still be available for guests to enjoy. Notably, this refresh comes as another monorail loop hotel, Disney's Polynesian Village Resort, has already begun a large refurbishment project of its own. For those waiting to experience Disney Cruise Line's famed Marvel and/or Star Wars Days at Sea, I have some good news for you. Disney has announced that both programs are slated to return in 2022. Marvel Days at Sea will happen aboard Disney Magic 5-night cruises from Miami to the Caribbean and the Bahamas on select sailings from January through March 2022. Meanwhile, Star Wars Days at Sea will take place on the Disney Fantasy during 7-night sailings to the Caribbean from Port Canaveral during that same time frame. For more information on these and other cruises, be sure to visit DisneyCruiseLine.com. Despite the announcement that Disney's Magical Express will no longer be available after 2021, Disney Cruise Line ground transportation to and from Port Canaveral will continue. This includes ground transfer between Orlando International Airport and the port, as well as those between Walt Disney World and Port Canaveral. Bookings for these options can be purchased through Disney Cruise Line. If you've been dreaming of a Walt Disney World vacation but are holding off until 2022, then it's finally time to start planning. This week, the resort began accepting vacation package bookings stretching all the way into January 2023. Notably, however, hotels that continue to be closed at this time are not available for booking, but Disney continues to look at the current situation and will make adjustments as needed. Notably, with the new booking availability, Walt Disney World has also extended its Park Pass reservation system into January 2023. However, it is possible that Disney will cancel the program before this date if it's no longer needed. In the meantime, you'll want to be sure to nab your Park Passes when booking your stay. Late last week, Hong Kong Disneyland reopened from its latest temporary closure, which began in December. Announcing the reopening, Disney noted that cast members will be tested once every 14 days, while guests will need to make park reservations and will need to scan a Leave Home Safe QR code to enter the park, restaurants, and hotel recreation facilities. At this time, Hong Kong Disneyland will continue to operate a 5 days per week schedule, with the park closed on most Tuesdays and Thursdays until further notice. If there was any doubt that Disney Plus was still a hit with consumers, newly revealed figures show that even more subscribers are flocking to the service. During a recent earnings call, it was announced that Disney Plus now has 94.9 million paid subscribers. Additionally, Disney has seen 39.4 million subscribers for Hulu and 12.1 million for ESPN Plus. For comparison, Netflix had 204 million subscribers as of Q4 2020. As a reminder, the price of Disney Plus will increase from the current $6.99 per month to $7.99 on March 26th. If you're able, now would be a good time to pay for the annual subscription to save yourself some money. Just in case Marvel fans weren't getting enough upcoming content between WandaVision, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, and more, Disney has announced yet another series set to debut next month. Assembled is a new docuseries from Marvel Studios that will take viewers behind the scenes of shows and movies from the MCU. First up, the series will share a look at the making of WandaVision when Assembled kicks off on March 12th. Future installments of the series will then arrive shortly after theatrical releases and series completions. So, get ready for Marvel Studios' Assembled coming to Disney+. In other MCU news, we now know who will be scoring the madness when the latest Doctor Strange film hits theaters. In an interview with Inverse, composer Danny Elfman confirmed that he was attached to the project, which is being directed by Sam Raimi. If you're not familiar with Elfman by name, you may recognize his work from The Nightmare Before Christmas, The Simpsons, Alice in Wonderland, or numerous other films and TV shows. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is set to premiere in theaters on March 25th, 2022. At long last, Disney has released an official trailer for its upcoming live-action film, Cruella. Starring Emma Stone as the titular villain, Cruella is set in 1970s London and takes on a punk rock aesthetic. Throughout the film, viewers will bear witness to a series of events that cause a young grifter named Estella to embrace her wicked side and become the raucous, fashionable, and revenge-bent Cruella. Interestingly, while the trailer includes a May 28, 2021 release date, it's currently not quite clear if the movie will be released in theaters, on Disney Plus, or both, so stay tuned. Also, if you're like me, when you think of a live-action Cruella de Vil, you think of celebrated actress Glenn Close, who portrayed the role in the 90s. An interesting thing to note is that she is an executive producer on the upcoming Cruella. Disney has announced that DuckTales will conclude its run with a 90-minute series finale set to air on Monday, March 15th. Ahead of that event, Disney XD will debut new episodes every Monday beginning February 22nd, and will present a week-long DuckTales marathon of every aired episode beginning March 8th. Then, after the finale's premiere, it'll encore non-stop for 24 hours. You can also catch the first 2 seasons of DuckTales on Disney Plus as we await the March 15th send-off to the series. Now joining me to discuss the next couple bits of news is Kyle Burbank from laughingplace.com. Hello, Kyle.
Hey, Jeff.
The folks enjoyed you, so I figured I'd let you come back.
That's good. I was a little concerned after our blowout fight. No, I'm just kidding.
Our giant fight over Disney's Magical Express. Well, first up today, we got some news about the plans for Walt Disney World's 50th anniversary. They're calling it the world's most magical celebration. It's going to begin on October 1st, 2021, which is the resort's actual 50th anniversary date, which is pretty cool. Usually they start a bit sooner, and it's going to continue for 18 months, which is the typical celebration of a year for Disney parks. And, you know, this was interesting to me because they kind of hyped an announcement the day before. You saw the hype, right?
A little bit of hype. I think it was on some sort of Facebook page that they kind of teased something and then they did the actual announcement the next morning on GMA, which is their MO because they own ABC. So they just, I always laugh, my wife and I, anytime they have to mention that Disney is the parent company of ABC, I turn to her like, did you know that Disney is the parent company of ABC?
Yes, it's surprising. Good Morning America on ABC, indeed. They make a lot of announcements on there. And this was one of them. And here's the thing. We all know going into this that the 50th anniversary has had a massive budget cut. This is no surprise. This is expected, I would say, right?
Yeah, and I think, it's a combination of budget cuts and delays, which is kind of half of the strategy, I'd say, of actually starting this on the anniversary on October 1st. The other one, obviously, being that it gives them a little bit more time to hopefully be at a better place by October. But yeah, having that 18 months means that now projects that were a bit delayed, like the Tron coaster, are now going to probably, hopefully, fall into that window so it can still open during the celebration. It just won't be ready for the actual 50th.
Yeah, because typically this celebration would probably have started around June or so.
I'd feel like it probably started January or something, but I have to look back. Especially for a big one like this. I remember for Disneyland's 60th, they actually announced plans for the 60th on the 59th.
I do remember that. That's right. That was a big thing. Forgot about that. So yeah, the announcement wasn't that great, to be completely honest. It's just interesting. I wish they had just made the announcement and not hyped it, because they really, on their social media at least, they really made it seem like they had some big announcements. The announcements essentially were that there's going to be this shimmering iridescent decor that'll appear around the resort, while the icons at each park will transform at night to become beacons of magic.
Projection mapping. In the case of Spaceship, so let's start with Magic Kingdom. We do have a new design for the castle. Of course, the castle was recently updated with the Pepto-Bismol pink color, which I'm not the biggest fan of.
The gold decor that they'll be adding to that, I think, improves it a bit, but that's just for the 50th. It is always funny. I feel like whenever they do these big castles for the anniversaries, except for the 25th, they're usually so cool. And I was like, oh, keep that around. It looks so good. I forget what it was. Maybe it was like 100 Years of Magic or one of those. They had such beautiful decor on Cinderella Castle. And we're getting essentially that, I would say, for the 50th, right?
Yeah, I think the projection, at this day and age, I think that the projection mapping makes sense. Although I will go on record as saying that, at least when I was a kid, I thought that the Cupcake Castle was the coolest thing. And I still don't hate it. I won't go as far to say as that it was a good idea, but I won't say that I hate it. But no, I think the projection mapping makes a lot of sense. And in fact, as I'm sure you were going to get to, Epcot's is actually sticking around. That one's not just for the 50th. That one's going to be its permanent lighting package. It's always going to have some sort of magic, and presumably it'll get that update that was postponed.
Yeah, so Spaceship Earth, this was interesting because how long ago did the wand go away? I'm sure it was longer than I realized.
Well, it started in 2000. I forget how long it stayed up for, but I can look that up while you talk.
Yeah, so in 2000, probably in 99 is my guess. Maybe it was 2000, but the wand with the 2000 came up and that was added on. And then eventually after the year 2000, it just said Epcot, and it was there for a very long time. So that's kind of what this reminds me of, this whole, the sparkling magic, the beacons of magic that they'll be adding to Spaceship Earth are sticking beyond the celebration. They're saying it's permanent, but who knows? I mean, the wand was permanent for a good chunk of time.
Well, the wand stuck around to 2007, it turns out.
Wow, okay, 2007. So I was only there for about 7 or 8 years. That's a shorter period of time than I thought, to be honest. Because it did get to a point with that wand where I thought, we're never getting just plain old beautiful Spaceship Earth again.
Well, and remember the ear hat at DHS? I mean, that's a separate thing, but just people were so upset about it for so long, and then just out of nowhere, it's like, oh no, it's going away. And
yeah.
It's just like, what?
That upset me way more than the wand. The Disney's Hollywood Studio
You mean its existence?
Yeah, I didn't like it being in front of the Chinese theater. That theater's...
And it was a pin shop. It was just silly.
Yeah, it was silly. So we got those two. We got Cinderella Castle. We got Spaceship Earth over in Disney's Animal Kingdom. They are doing, a nighttime projection mapping to the Tree of Life. It's going to be different, but it's essentially what we already got, I would say.
There's going to be fireflies.
Ooh.
That's what I got from it.
It's going to be fireflies. And then
10 million fireflies, and I'm sad because I hate goodbyes.
What did you just say?
I'm just quoting Owl City. It's what I do.
Okay. So then over at Disney's Hollywood Studios, we've got the Tower of Terror, which they're calling the park icon, which I don't even know anymore. What is the park icon at Disney's Hollywood Studios? Why did they get rid of the Eiffel Tower? Because I don't know if it's Tower of Terror or the Chinese Theater or even the Millennium Falcon some days. But in the case of the 50th anniversary, I guess it's the Tower of Terror. And there will be projection mapping on there as well, which of course we've gotten kind of used to at the holidays.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not the Chinese Theater, because they put a new ride in there. It seems like they'd want to hype that more. I guess the tower is it's bigger and you can see it from further away. Although, I mean, if that's the measure, then the Eiffel Tower was a pretty dinky icon to begin with.
The Eiffel Tower was perfect, and you must never say a bad word about it ever again.
I just said it was small. And you had to be on the tram right in front of it to see it.
You said dinky, and there was this judgment in your voice when you said it.
Okay.
Dinky.
At least I didn't insult Rick Moranis. I know
you wouldn't be invited back if that happened. So, amongst all of this projection mapping and twinkling lights and beacons of magic, there was no mention of any pyrotechnics, which of course is always concerning. I did get the feeling that this was like the first of more announcements to come, so who knows?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like this was definitely, I think they had to release something as far as the actual offerings, but I feel like this was letting the public know when these things were going to happen. You're going to have plenty of time to celebrate the 50th, so if you don't feel comfortable coming now, like it's going to start in October, but if you're still not ready, like you got some time. And
yeah,
it's no, as we mentioned in the actual headlines, 2022 bookings are now available So it was all part of that big announcement, like, we're ready for you to come back in 2022.
Well, we're ready for you. Are you ready for us, essentially? And yeah, it is funny, though, it being an 18-month celebration. That means that this will actually go into the 51st anniversary, which is strange. So if they started it January of this year, it would have been done by the 51st. And this happened with the 60th. I remember on the 61st, we were still celebrating the 60th at Disneyland. And it's a little bizarre, but I get it, especially in this case. I think it makes a ton of sense for them to start it on October 1st of this year. I'm not sure that it's going to be enough to get people to want to go on their once-in-a-lifetime vacations to Walt Disney World, especially if live shows and parades still aren't back. I'm really hoping by then maybe we'll get that stuff back, but I think it's,
I think it's reasonable to think so. I don't know if it'll be ready by October. The good thing about it being in October is that you're only 3 months away from the next year. So I think by the time that new year rolls around, hopefully that stuff would be back. I mean, we're already seeing some pretty positive things in the news the past couple of weeks that would lead us to believe that October should be, probably pretty good as far as domestic travel at least. And then hopefully it'll just get better from there.
Yes, everybody get a vaccine. That's
if you can.
Saying. When you can. Get it.
When you can. There you go.
Get it.
Not if, but when.
Yes. So let's move on to the next bit of news. And this was something that, I just did an entire episode all about Imagineer Joe Rohde. And if you would have asked me, or if I would have asked myself in that episode, what do you think he's going to do next in his retirement? Let's face it, we all knew he wasn't going to be sitting still. But if you had told me that he was going to join Virgin Galactic as an experienced architect, essentially getting ready to send people to space, that wouldn't have been my first thought.
Yeah, definitely an interesting move, and even more interesting that he's not the first Disney person to go over to Virgin. So Michael Coglazer, who worked in the parks, who was, I forget his exact title at the time that he left.
He was the former president and managing director of Disney Parks International.
Right, and then he went over to Virgin Galactic some time ago now. So it's pretty interesting that they're trying to not just take people to space, but also make, that same sort of level of experience that you expect from a Disney park and put that into commercial space travel.
Yeah, it's incredible. Rohde's going to work as a strategic advisor, helping design and guide the overall experience journey for astronauts and enthusiasts. And, it was really interesting to hear him talk about it. And I mean, it's so interesting to me because obviously the man meant so much to the Walt Disney Company, but I don't know, when I heard this announcement, I was like, oh my gosh, maybe this is Joe Rohde's purpose in life. Maybe like the whole Disney experience was leading up to this moment for him, because it's a kind of spectacular moment. It's insane.
Yeah, and I mean, the title and even the little bit of description we got for what his job's going to be is a little bit vague. But when you watch the video and you see him kind of make that connection between what he did for Disney and giving people an experience that they'd never had before, and then kind of segueing that into, well, you've definitely never had this experience before, I thought that actually made a lot of sense. My only concern is that I would not want to go to space with Joe Rohde because I don't trust that ear flying around in zero gravity. That sounds dangerous.
I actually thought that as I was watching the video. I was like, okay, he's definitely going to have to remove the
Could they not
earrings.
have shot him from the other angle? Like, come on now.
Are you kidding? It's his iconic
Don't
look.
like it. Freaks me out.
Does it really?
A little bit.
I do feel like, it looks like it's going to rip every once in a while, but it's all right. It's his thing. It's his thing. I'm sure it weighs way less than we think. I hope. I wonder if he's going to have like neck pains at some point in his life because, the weight on one side of his head, he's constantly leaning in one direction.
Someone should ask him if he's ever like weighed it before.
Next time I run into him, I'll be sure to ask. My guess is he's probably had that ear repaired at some point.
He's also going to start putting a bunch of like moon dust and stuff in that ear.
We've gone a little insane right now. So one thing I did love in this video announcement that they put out was, him talking about how he's seen the entirety of the history of space unfold across his lifetime. And I thought that was such an interesting point. He was purposeful to point out that, this is like a once in a lifetime sort of thing. This moment in history will never happen again. This is going to probably upset some people. I'm not like the type of person that's like dying to get out into outer space. That's not my thing. If somebody gave me the option to go down to the bottom of the ocean or into space, I'd choose the bottom of the ocean. But I think
that's actually a choice at the end of the Project Earth, Project Tomorrow.
Yes, you're right. It is. So you know which one I choose now. So yeah, I'm just kind of blown away by this. And I did think, I'm like, how much is this guy going to be working? Like, he just retired. Is he really going to be putting in 40+ hour weeks again? Or is this going to be more of a consultation thing? My guess is he's going to be very involved, like just knowing his personality type. And he's not retired. It's what I would say.
Yeah. And I think his job will definitely evolve with time as they get closer from sending, test people up to actually making this something. Like he's mentioned democratizing space travel, and it's going to take a long time before you get there. Like, it's going to not be cheap to buy a ticket on these flights at first, but maybe over time, making it more something that your average person could go do instead of taking a Walt Disney World vacation for a week. Maybe you go to space for 20 minutes.
Don't let Disney hear you say that. Oh my good. Well, they'll get there, right? We'll have Mickey in space. So.
Well, I'll say we all know Mission Space is sitting there without a sponsor. Come on, Virgin Galactic, let's make it happen.
I was actually thinking, I was like, did Joe Rohde ever work on anything space related? If he did, it wasn't in a major way. He didn't do Mission Space. I don't think he's ever really touched Spaceship Earth. Like, I can't think of it. I don't think he had anything to do with the restaurant, right? Space 220.
Does Mission Breakout, does that take place in space technically?
I don't know. Maybe
I guess it does.
Kind of, sort of. That would be the closest thing. So I just found that slightly ironic, given the amount of stuff he's worked on, that like he's kind of stayed away from the space stuff at Disney, and maybe he was itching to get there. So now he's doing it for real. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Anything else you want to add about that?
Well, obviously, we wish him the best of luck. It'll be interesting to see what he does there. I think they've actually already announced some like outfits and stuff for that. So I wonder if he'll revamp those. I know he's not a costumer, but I'm sure if he has a certain story to tell with what you wear or what the crew wears, that maybe they'll take that into consideration.
Well, the thing that'll be interesting is, like, let's face it, at one point, people were like, people will never fly through the air. That's insane. Like, airplanes were this thing that was unbelievable to people. And now we're talking about going into space, which sounds like, the general public will never get there. But monetarily, we can. The thing that's going to be interesting is how comfortable or what kind of like physical shape you need to be in order to eventually do it. Because going to space is not like a bus ride. It's, it's intense.
I don't like buses, as we learned.
Well, yeah, it's true. You hate buses, and maybe you'll hate rocket ships now, too. We'll see. But, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how comfortable they can make that journey for people. And it'll probably be beyond our lifetimes, maybe? I don't know. I don't
think so.
Beyond Joe's lifetime.
I mean, you've seen just the way that technology works. Once it gets to a certain point, it accelerates,
at light speed?
Yeah, sure, light speed.
Well, I do want to touch on one other thing I didn't tell you about before we go, because people are going to be shocked to hear me say this, because it's Marvel related. But oh my gosh, can we take a second to just appreciate and applaud WandaVision? Holy crap! This thing is kind of unbelievable. And from day one, Catherine Hahn, who plays Agnes, has 100,000 bazillion% been my favorite part of the show. I don't know who this actress is. I've never really noticed her in anything else before. She is brilliant, and it keeps getting more and more brilliant. And this is from a non-MCU guy, so I know you're way more into that than me. So I'm a little curious how you're doing with it.
We love it. My wife and I watch it. We get up early every Friday to watch it. And then I do a podcast called the Zacks of Life podcast, and we've been recapping each episode each week as part of the Marvel podcast. And then she does a live stream on Mondays called Marvel Mondays, and she talks about it. So we spend our entire weekend watching this show like 3 times and like taking notes and stuff. And this last one was every week I'm expecting to come in and be like, this one wasn't my favorite. Took a little bit of a jump off. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't that great. And every week I'm still blown away. And this one, just such a fun ending, even though a lot of people saw this twist coming. It was so fun the way they did it, and the song was pitch perfect, and it's catchy as all get out, and it's been stuck in my head. It's kind of getting mixed up with the Fall Out Boy song Uma Thurman, because that song samples the Munsters, which this song takes off from the Munsters. So
yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and I kind of just wanted to say that because if anybody is listening who is not a Marvel Cinematic Universe person but loves like TV nostalgia and stuff, check it out if you have the chance. I will say this is not getting me to like go back and watch everything Marvel. I've heard some people be like, "Oh, I got to go back and watch everything." I'm like, "No, I am not there. I'm enjoying this for what it is." I am catching some of the, Marvel references, but I'm sure I'm missing a ton, but it's not taking away from my enjoyment of the show. So check that out. The other thing is the Muppet Show is on Disney Plus now. And as much as a Muppet fan I am, I certainly have not seen every episode of the Muppet Show. So I'm going through it from the beginning and watching them all. And that's going to be fun. But it is interesting to watch the early episodes because like Miss Piggy's voice changes like multiple times within one episode, not even from like 1 week to the next, like within the first episode, multiple people perform Miss Piggy with drastically different voices. And it's very interesting and lots of questionable material on the Muppet Show.
Well, yeah, that's why they have warnings on them, cultural warnings on several episodes, as well as there are at least a couple of episodes, I believe, that are missing for various reasons. Some of them have to do with music rights, and some of them have to do with the person who was guest hosting and their history, I believe.
I genuinely wish you didn't tell me that. I didn't realize that, and now I'm just going to feel like I never completed it. So now I'm actually really
they might
bummed.
add them. I mean, we saw with The Simpsons how both of those rollouts, both when it was on FXX and then when it came to Disney Plus, how they had the wrong aspect ratio, and it took them some time, but they got it fixed.
Yeah,
So
but they still don't have the Michael Jackson episode.
That's a really good point.
Oh, man. Anyway.
I'm just saying, like, some of the music rights issues ones might go there.
Yeah, we'll see. But it's very interesting. Like, even if you consider yourself a Muppet fan, I think you'll learn a lot about Muppet history just watching the Muppet Show. I don't know. How familiar were you with it before?
I mean, I've definitely seen some episodes. I couldn't tell you where I saw them.
Nickelodeon for me. Primetime Nickelodeon.
Yeah,
like
if it was on Nickelodeon, then that's where... because obviously like the intro for that show is burned into my brain, and I know some of the recurring sketches like Pigs in Space and Swedish Chef, things like that, but I couldn't necessarily tell you any other moments aside from seeing like little clips of guest stars here or there.
I'll tell you one thing that's starting to drive me crazy with streaming services in general. Just let the credits roll. If I want to skip to the next episode, I will. Quit shrinking it down to the corner of the screen, especially on a show like The Muppet Show where like the credits are like literally the last moment of the credits. There's always a button joke that it's shrunk down on your screen at that point. I'm like so annoyed by this. And even WandaVision, I know there's often stuff within the credits that I'm like, please just let the credits roll.
Disney Plus is a lot better at it than Netflix, though, because at least Disney Plus, it does get small and it's easy to bring back up. Netflix gives you like 3 seconds to click if you want to watch the credits before you get to the next one. And then you have to fast forward to the whole thing if you want to get back to the credits.
But speaking of credits, WandaVision will have like 8 minutes of credits. It's insane how long their credits are because like they'll go through every different language and stuff. So here I am complaining about let the credits roll, and now I'm like the credits are too long. So obviously I'm contradicting myself, but this is what I want. Let the credits roll and let the credits be a reasonable length. Is that too much to ask for?
No.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go on a limb and say it's not.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Well, Kyle, thank you so much for coming on and chatting about the latest news. I'll see you again in a couple of weeks with more news.
See you then.
To read more about any and all of the stories you've heard here today, simply visit the show notes at DisneyCoastToCoast.com or find the links to the show notes in this episode's description. You've heard the news, and now I want to hear what you have to say about it. Call 818-860-2569, leave a voicemail sharing your thoughts, and you may just hear yourself on a future episode of Disney Coast to Coast. Once again, that's 818-860-2569, or simply look in this episode's description for the phone number along with a link for some free gifts from me to you. Sam called in to share thoughts on the most recent episode about Imagineer Joe Rohde.
Hi, Jeff. It's Sam. I listened to Disney Coast to Coast, and I loved the most recent Imagineer Joe Rohde episode discussing his career. I especially loved the idea to put the theater in the wild and somehow connect it to Dino Land. I think that would be so fun. I'm definitely missing live theater now, and I loved your idea for that. And just learning all about Joe Rohde. I didn't even know he worked on Mission Breakout, so that was some really cool information to learn. So thank you for always creating an amazing podcast. I absolutely loved this episode.
Thanks so much for leaving a voicemail, Sam. It's always great to hear from DCTC listeners. If you haven't yet listened to that Joe Rohde episode, be sure and check it out. And next week, I have a conversation with an Imagineer all about the use of IP in the parks. That is definitely an interesting conversation you won't want to miss. The easiest way to make sure you don't miss any of the magic is by subscribing to Disney Coast to Coast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Wherever you search, don't forget it's Disney with a Z, Coast to Coast. As always, thank you to those of you who support the show on Patreon. You make all of this possible. If you enjoy these honest conversations about Disney and have the means, please consider becoming a member of the DCTC community over at patreon.com/DisneyCTC for far less than the cost of a Max Pass. Plus, you'll gain rewards. You can find that link in this episode's description. Other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye!
Thanks for listening to Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePauli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com. This podcast is part of the DePodcast Network. Learn more about this show, plus find more quality and entertaining podcasts at DePodcastNetwork.com. That's DEPodcastNetwork.com.